Welcome back to Renewables Unscripted. This great conversation we talk to entrepreneurs about their journey through renewables and all the stuff that happens in between. Who have we got today, Etienne?
Today, we have the great luck of having Rob Andrews from Heliolytics, essentially the biggest drone company, well, the aerial thermography company out there, a fantastic Toronto-based company who's really defined their market and recently exited to NovaSource. So super excited to be talking to Rob today. Let's get to it. All right, let's get into it. Well, Rob, thank you so much for joining us today on Renewables Unscripted. We're very, very glad after months of back and forth to finally have you in the hot seat to talk about your journey at Heliolytics. Now, I guess NovaSource / or Heliolytics by NovaSource. How do we refer to you now?
Yeah, Heliolytics, just Heliolytics, and we'll talk about what's going on there and everything around it. But yeah, no, I'm super excited. So I know it's been a lot of back and forth, and you guys are my favorite people to chat to about this kind of stuff. Etienne, I know we've had a lot of this conversation we were talking before over beers many times. So glad that we can do it on the record now, which is going to be dangerous, I guess.
Yeah, excited to have you on the show.
So excited. I think we've had a lot of conversations and really about the journey itself and the similarities. Because what year was Heliolytics founded?
Oh, I should have prepared this before. So Heliolytics is 7 years and 8 months old. So now I just set myself up to be bad at math. I believe we were incorporated 2014.
I love that he's still counting in months, like it's his baby that he's still referring to it.
Well, you know, it is very similar because when we sold the company, everyone asked like, "Hey, what's the story of Heliolytics? When did it start?" So this question I've gotten so often that I've got it down to the months.
That's impressive. For us, April 1st was 11 years since I incorporated what was then called LCAB, right, which is then morphed into Power Hub, and so on. So similar journeys. We built businesses right here in Ontario and Toronto, went on to conquer the globe, and then exited the business. So for those of them listening out there who don't know what Heliolytics are, can you explain it in a nutshell that you guys are like a large drone company? That's the case? Or can you help us with that?
Tee that up perfectly. Yeah. So we, I'm sure we'll go into the story of how it all came together. But yeah, Heliolytics, we provide aerial inspection and advisory services for solar projects. So we just kind of did the math the other day. So we've done over 125 gigawatts of projects globally. So we're active North America, South America, Europe, Australia, and throughout EMEA. So we've got kind of a really big understanding of how these systems operate. And, you know, to say it in a nutshell, so we do, a lot of folks know us through aerial inspections. We use aircraft primarily. We also do use drones, and we can chat about that as well. But you know, where I think we really differentiate ourselves is, yes, we do aerial inspections, but we're a consulting company. We're there to make sure that we're providing problems and solutions. You know, it's what we realize is that it's not really good enough to say, hey, here's dots on a page of where your broken stuff is. You really have to follow up with, and this is how it impacts the risk of the project. Here's what you need to do next. Here's how you get to resolution. And so we have a very, very strong focus on the solar sector. That's where that partnership with NovaSource is really helpful for us. And so that's kind of where we provide services in a nutshell. You know, sneak preview, there's a bunch of other more interesting areas where we're going to start to intersect with this kind of digital asset management piece, and, you know, areas where I think there's a lot of good partnership opportunities with Power Hub as well.
Awesome, Rob. So you talk about aerial inspections. Can you tell us about the first inspection? How did that go? Right? Because it's easy now. You've started this 8 years and odd months ago. Now the process is down, the technology is working, everything's working. But if we move ourselves way back, can you tell us about that first inspection?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the first inspection was not an aerial inspection. The first inspection was on the back of the pickup truck. And so when we started the company, so it was myself, Mike Yan, Scott Innes, started the company together. And our first assumption was drones are super cool. We should build a company to do drones to inspect with infrared. And we'll you can talk about how we got to that decision. But but this was 2014, as hopefully my math is established, and so drone DJI, a lot of the drone manufacturers didn't really exist. So if you wanted to do a drone inspection, you had to build your drone. And so we started for the first few months building drones. And what we realized is that we were spending a lot of time building drones and not a lot of time inspecting solar farms. And so getting into that, we actually scrapped all that. We stopped building drones. We stopped dealing with that altogether. And we bought a window washing pole and built a little platform to mount a window washing pole on the back of a pickup truck. Because we realized the problem we were trying to solve was getting a camera 30 feet in the air. And the most effective way we could do that was put it on the top of a 30-foot window washing pole. So our first commercial inspection was using that. So we had the camera in the air and we just drove the truck through the system. But that was really successful for us because we were able to do our first commercial inspection that way at a very, very low cost, and use that to then finance purchasing of drones and then eventually the aircraft system that we used.
Cool. So how do you go from 30 feet to 30,000 feet? Can you sort of talk to me about that process and progress and how you get there? Did you invent something?
Yeah, we did. So I think, and I, super happy that we made the decision, and a lot of credit goes to Mike on kind of pulling the brakes on, like, no, we're trying to solve the problem getting the camera 30 feet in the air, not building drones. Is we spent a lot of time in the field very early on. Is that we didn't spend a lot of time building the technology. We actually were, got out of the field and like, to be frank, and I'm sorry, Hugh Kuhn was a person who gave us our first contract, and a lot of credit to him because he had a lot of trust in us, and I really appreciate that. And he might, sorry Hugh if you hear this, but like the system didn't work as we flew down to the system. We were building the system as we like flew down to that project to inspect it the first time. So like it really did not, it wasn't a thing. And so because we got out in the field that early, we learned a lot of things. We learned that, hey, the deployment of this is going to be an issue. We started thinking about, all right, now we've been out on these fields. Now, even if we had a drone, what would it look like to service 20 sites? That would absolutely suck, because we'd have to like drive between all of them, get hotels and do all that. And so it was actually, we were having a beer after Intersolar, after talking to a bunch of people about what this could look like. And we're like, man, this would be so much better if we could just strap this in an airplane and then we wouldn't have to like drive around. We wouldn't have to do any of that. And we were like, oh yeah, cool. Let's do that instead. So there was a lot of, so going from 30 feet to 30,000 feet, 3,000 feet, it's not 30. It required, we had to rethink how we were doing the cameras. We had to rethink how we were doing the acquisition systems. We had to like build our own control circuit boards and software and everything else around it. And that was really kind of one of the big innovations for the company, was building this technology where, as the technology evolved and as the market evolved and as other entrants came into the space, everyone else was limited by what you could buy from DJI or what the camera packages you could buy commercially. Whereas we had the competency in-house to build our own systems and to do that. And so that allowed us to get that aircraft system, that really kind of advanced imaging off the ground, pretty early into the process.
So that's great. Those competencies in-house, I think people are so important when founding a company. And in this case, your three founders. So how did that come together with Mike and Scott and you? How did that coalesce and that complementarity of the skills that I understand anyways, that lives there?
Yeah. So the kind of story started was doing my Ph.D. at Queen's University up in Ontario, focusing on solar system optimization algorithms and associated things. And that was pretty fortunate timing, because that was at the same time as the Green Energy Act was happening. And so we had a lot of new developers coming into the province saying, hey, we want to build solar. How do we build solar? What does it look like to operate a solar site? No one knows. Let's go to the universities. And then a lot of that streamed up to the lab that I was working at and to me, because we were some of the only people who were doing research in the space. So got to have a lot of really good conversations with these owners and developers very early on. And kind of learn about the problems and the needs and things there. And so coming to that, had a lot of good contacts with some of the different developers, and had identified, hey, this DC health thing, these modules, this health is a challenge. And applying a new technology to it, like infrared, which was at the time kind of a new angle to take on this, was a way to start to look at what was happening in the BC field. So had that idea, and then was kind of poodling around with it. I had a consulting company. It was just me at the time doing data consulting. At the same time, I was trying to figure out, hey, how do we do this imaging thing? But realized pretty early on that, yeah, I didn't have that skill set to build that out. So posted on Facebook, actually. Hey, I'm I'm doing this. Anyone interested? At the time I was looking, hey, can I hire someone to like do software and hardware development? And that's when Mike was finishing up was at a Y Combinator company down in San Francisco and was looking to come back to Toronto. And so it was a really nice kind of connection there. And so met with Mike and thought that was a good thing to do together. And so we started kind of hammering out some of that kind of early prototypes of what that looked like. And then pretty soon after, I'd say kind of 4 months or so after we kind of started the company and started doing some of the stuff, we realized, hey, none of us know how to do finance, and all of us hate cash flow and managing all that and doing that. And it was fortunate that, yeah, Scott was also looking for a transition career at the time and joined us. And I think that's having those three kind of orthogonal skill sets that having the solar, the software and hardware, and the finance side, having those covered was, I think, really, really foundational to being able to grow the company, because all of us could not do each other's jobs. And I think that was really important.
Yeah, it's always exciting to have the right people in the right place. And you guys grew from 3 to a little over 100 before you joined NovaSource as a partnership, was it?
Not over 100. We were about 50 or 55, I think, when we joined NovaSource, and we're about 70 now.
Okay, and how has that process been for you? What are the key things you want to talk about and challenges you faced as you grew from the three of you running around in a pickup truck to like a well-established team with processes and everything in place?
Yeah. Well, I remember, in university and kind of starting out the career, I was like, man, if I ever do a company, I'm not gonna have any of this stupid process stuff. That's all for that. That's for the boring people. I gotta have an innovative company that doesn't have any of this stuff. And realized pretty quickly that now is, I think, one of our differentiators, is that we've got a lot of really strong leaders within the team who have been able to build out that kind of processes, the evaluations, the management structures that you need in order to go from 3 people to 70 where we are now. And I mean, once again, going to like the complementariness of skill sets, is that, like, I think it's important to be frank about what you're good at and what you're not good at. I'm not good at like setting and putting in place processes and operations, and we have people in the company who are very, very good at that. And I think that works really well to work together with folks like that.
No, I think it's so important. Knowing where your own limits are as an entrepreneur is so important to kind of put in the right people in the right roles and kind of move forward. It doesn't say that you can't learn along the way. And like I've learned a lot on software development over the years, as I'm sure you have, or hardware development. Yeah. But the core of it is know where you stop. And I like to say, if I'm not the smartest person in the room, that means I'm doing my job well. That means we've hired the best and the brightest out there, and I'm just there as putting people together. So I think that's so helpful in scaling a business, is knowing what you're good and what you're not good at. And I think on your founding team, you guys did a stellar job there of really having that pattern of skills that mesh well together.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think actually the first time that I realized that, oh, hey, I could actually start a company was I remember very vividly. I was windsurfing at the time. There's a cool club in Kingston. It's very good for windsurfing there. And one of the people who was talking to me, and she was saying, hey, I'm thinking of starting my company. And the first thing I did is I listed out everything I'm good at, everything I'm bad at, and started to think about how I mitigate the things that I'm bad at through kind of building up the company. And I was like, that was a very like logical thing. And like 2 things realization came. One was like, oh, hey, I know her. She's great, but she's a normal person. Like if she can do that kind of thing, I can do that kind of thing. And that idea that, entrepreneurs aren't good at everything. That's not the definition of an entrepreneur, I think, is also, I think, a good realization that, you're allowed to have weaknesses. You have to embrace those, and you have to figure out how to mitigate them is part of the game.
I really like that. I really like that idea of a mentor, and you found someone to help you through that first step there. Anybody else you really reached out to as a mentor to help you along the journey throughout there, to get some advice on moving through things, and how did that pan out?
Yeah, I mean, I think that I was quite fortunate that so my family has a lot of entrepreneurs with it in it. And so my parents and my dad has a very strong kind of entrepreneurial side to it, and also other folks there. And I think again that was helpful to understand that these are normal humans. They're great humans, but they're all normal humans, and to be able to get that advice and bring it forward. And I think that the finding and identifying mentors is challenging. I think I think I had kind of that family support structure, which was fantastic, and maybe something we can talk about is like something that family support structure means that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of look come from similar backgrounds, because that is such a huge boost for being able to do this kind of stuff. But outside of that, I think it was actually a challenge to find and identify kind of the right set of mentors, and especially as you get farther and farther into your career, is that so definitely something I'm still actually looking for is where do you find and source those.
On that note, I think it's often, and I think you guys bootstrap the entire operation throughout until the exit. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, so one thing when you raise funds and so on, you look for quote unquote smart money, right? Money that can bring in value and advice to avoid kind of mistakes along the way. So I guess that's a downside of bootstrapping sometimes as you go forward. So can you tell us a little bit, when did you decide that was the right time to move on? Like, you've bootstrapped this business, you've built it up to great scale, and you're like, okay, now's the time to exit or to turn or go faster or expand, or what was the thought process that lead you to exit? Was there a formal process? If you can tell us a little bit about that, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that the as we started to scale out, we saw that a bunch of other friends came to join the party as well, and so there was a bunch of other activity in the space. A lot of companies are coming out doing aerial inspections and challenge that space, and a lot of them also coming in with different amounts of capital and venture raises as well. And so I think what we saw was we were I think quite fortunate that actually fortunate is maybe the wrong word, but we were strategic, maybe is the word I'll say to our credit, of we were wanting to build out the company, make sure that we kind of retain control and that flexibility as we're building things out. And we felt that as we were building the market, it was probably too early to tell the story we wanted to tell to the markets about what is this company, what can it do, and what does that look like. And what I think we saw is that, hey, now this is at scale. This is not a science project. This is not a proof of concept. We are at scale and the largest provider in the space. To get to the next stage, we're going to need that support. And Etienne, to your point, is that both the monetary support, but also like having the partners who know what it looks like to get to that next level of scale, and to build that out. And so, at that time we looked at a couple different options. We looked at VC cash. We looked at different merger opportunities. The one that kind of made a lot of sense for us was working with NovaSource in the way that we did.
Cool. And you're talking about scaling a lot, and you mentioned a lot. Were there anything specific about, or challenges or things you'd like to share about scaling in Canada, especially when you want to build a global business? I mean, it's one of those things we always talk about, is how do you scale in Canada? How do you do that right?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say that we in Canada have a bit of an unfair advantage. In that when you're building a company in Canada, you have to build an international company from day one. There's in most cases, like you have to be targeted towards international markets. You can't focus on the Canadian market alone, especially in the renewables aspect, but I think for in a lot of areas. And I think in general, Toronto is one of the most, if not the most diverse cities in the world. And so I think coming with that international focus baked in is, I think, a real advantage for companies here. And so that means that, we're active in North America, we're active in Europe, we're active in all these other areas, because if you're doing international work in the US, it's very similar to doing international work in Europe, and there are differences there. And so if getting built in day one is good. And I mean, it's quite interesting. Like Canada, or Toronto specifically, we've got good little hub of solar experts and companies here. It's like, I think we're punching far above our weight in terms of, you know, the amount of solar that we have in Canada versus like the diversity of talent and folks that we have in Canada and in Toronto around the solar industry. And yeah, and I mean, the currency doesn't help either, or it doesn't hurt either. You know, that's that helps for sure. And you know, I think there is some cost efficiencies you can get there.
Oh, for sure. Like I love that you say that if you build a business out of Canada, it's built with an international mindset to start with, and I completely agree. That's where it has to be. But when you're carrying equipment, how do you take steps to go fly over France, as an example, or the UK once you've only flown in Canada or something like that? Was there a big learning on that side of the equation, operationally, how you make things happen in different markets?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's where like our first project we ever did was in Arizona. So right, the first time we ever did this, we had to figure all that out of like, how do you deal with that kind of inspections, management, partnerships, and things like that. And so, yeah, I mean, it's a challenge, especially because we are, you know, we're not a software company exclusively. We're software and a services company. So we have to get people in airplanes over sites. That's, you know, that's how this thing works. And so you know, what we found is really the importance of partnerships in building that out. And I think, you know, COVID was also an interesting challenge for us, you know, and a change in the model of how we deploy. When you can't cross borders anymore, it becomes, you know, difficult to cross borders because that's what your job is. So that's where, you know, we really had to rely on and build some really great partnerships. And you know, we've got a lot of good partnerships with different ways to deploy aircrafts in different regions. And you know, those partners have been really great to work with and to start to build all those capabilities and build that scalability that you need. Is that you know, you really need to find who are those partners that you can trust and that you can really kind of build this out with.
I love how you talk about partners and growing with the industry and those things. Like, without fail, I hear that resonating with everything I've done. And you talk about how it's more of a logistics problem for you than a software development problem. And I love that piece. But let's talk about the software too. Like, how did that come together? Where did you really start in that? I mean, that resonates more with myself, and I'm sure Etienne a little bit too these days.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so we, you know, we came into the software development side of it as, you know, software as a tool. Okay. And I think that, you know, the vision for Heliolytics wasn't, you know, a pure software as a service play or something like that, you know, because we have this blend of services and software. And so when I say software as a tool, it means that how do we build the core processes that we need to do, you know, the data capture, the processing, the analysis, the reporting, all those things. How do we build those to be efficient and make sure we can turn out a process? But how do we make sure that they're flexible enough to mean that we can adapt them to the needs of our customers and you know, what they need to be able to do, and enable that consulting side as well. And so I think that we have kind of these two sides of it. Is like the more you standardize your process, the less flexible that process is. And what we've kind of tried to strike in the balance as we've built out that software side is making sure, yes, we have that standardized process, but we're always going to have new things that customers are going to need us to do. So how do we make sure we maintain that flexibility? So our answer can be yes, not let's wait till like the release 2 years from now to be able to solve this problem for you.
I think that's really interesting. Like, the software supporting the business and being the first user of your software first and foremost.
Yeah.
When you're bootstrapping, however, you're chasing the next deal and the next deal and the next deal. So how has that impacted the product decisions that you make? Because it's a pitfall that I know we've fallen into, where we say, oh, if we build this feature or offer this service, then I'm going to land this deal, which is going to allow me 3 months more months of runway, or delay this, or show this milestone, and so on. So how did you guys prioritize that internally?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, it's always a challenge. It continues to be a challenge. Like, it's always the, you know, the sales to product side of, hey, we need this feature now, and product is like, yeah, but we need to like build it right. It'll be this long. You know, that's going to be any software company that doesn't have that problem, I think, has a problem. And so So there's all, but I think that one of the areas that we've been able to mitigate some of that is again through that kind of software as a tool thing, is that we have our development side, we have that side that is building the standardized processes and websites and whatever else that's going on. We also have our kind of analysis and consulting side, and there, you know, if a client has a specific need or an issue, or we're going through a particularly challenging insurance claim or something like that, where we need to do a bunch of interesting statistics, we have our consulting side that can write up a Python script and, you know, get that project done. And the way that we kind of think about this is that when someone asks us for something the first time, it doesn't go to the developers, it goes to the consulting side. And the first time they ask for an application, we'll do it for them. It usually comes as like a PDF that, you know, there's a, you know, consulting report that comes out, and we can answer and solve that problem for them. If they ask for it twice, or, you know, if more than one customer asks for it, we can start to standardize that process with our analysts. We can say, hey, we're going to, you know, keep on doing this type of work over and over again. And that allows us to kind of start to scale out those things. And then once it becomes, hey, this is a core product, then we can ship it over and you start to do like a long, detailed, like, let's make this work for everyone on the product side. So we yeah, and I think that's again kind of a big differentiator for us in the business, is that when someone says, hey, can you solve this complicated problem for us? It's not, hey, we need this new software functionality in the thing. It's yes, but, you know, if this is the timeline because we need to build a new thing for it, and we can do that for you.
It sounds like an MVP on demand type of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I love that. I love that concept. It really speaks to the heart of that entrepreneurial side of things, and moving that forward. And I like how you referred to, if they don't have that problem, they have another problem. And would you say that problem is listening to their clients and listening to the market?
Yeah, I think so. I think that if you're not adapting to the customer requests that are coming in, then you've got a challenge. And if the product roadmap isn't changing, then you've probably got a challenge. You probably did not get it right. That, you know, 2 years ago when you first laid out what the product roadmap was going to be.
I don't know if one single company that ever got it right off the bat, right? It can be lucky and time it. So for me, timing is always a big thing that you think, like, how do we know where's the market is going to be in 2 years type of thing. So when you think back of your journey at Heliolytics, do you think the timing was right? Did you arrive in the market at the right time? Were you a bit too late, a little bit too early? Tell me about your perspective there.
Yeah. No, I mean, we certainly got in the market too early. Like, we were starting with, the majority, actually, I really like this, that the majority of our most loyal clients were the ones who told us that this is a stupid idea when we first came to them about it. They were very nice. They gave us constructive feedback of why they thought this wasn't going to work. And we took that feedback and we adapted the product and made it work. But I think that for a lot of these technologies, if you're not launching it before the market's ready for it, you're too late. Because if you're launching these things when the market is ready for it, when that market niche has already been carved out, you're not going to be able to take that leadership position in it. And I think that was something that we, I think we were quite effective with, is that, aerial inspection, people had done aerial inspections before, and especially in Europe, there had been some folks who'd done it on helicopters and things like that. And so, but in North America, we were, for all intents and purposes, the first to offer, aerial inspections of this scale into the market. And so, and we really got to get that early feedback of, what works and what doesn't around aerial inspections. And so, I think that, so from that perspective, yes, we were early, but also it was, I think a really good time for us to enter that market.
Awesome. I love it.
So it's really about starting early to become a leader. I think that's what we saw. I think James and I were on our soapbox a little bit too early on the asset management bandwagon, but we managed to bring it to a close. And you guys seem that you're keep going with NovaSource there. So once again, congratulations on the exit, on a crazy journey across multiple continents, on I'm not sure how many models of aircraft, the back of trucks, and perhaps some drones along the way. So thank you so much for sharing your journey with us today, Rob. I will be happy to continue the conversation. I'm going to say, like we normally do, over some drinks at a conference.
Absolutely.
So thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rob. It's been a great, fun time.
Yeah, thanks so much. Really appreciate it, guys. you.